consciousness. Okay, so I have an initial thought that spans this entire book session that I wanted to draw out because it covers both books and both authors, and I want to draw it. It's a concept. All right. Where are we at? Canvas. All right. I hate this. Let's make it dark. We're not fucking normies. All right. So I would say there's two groups of people. God, I hate this app. So there's two groups of people entering philosophy. Someone with experience, someone without experience. So we'll say experience. I hate that it's going default black, even though I set it as white. All right, someone with experience, and then we're going to say someone with no experience. No XP. Good enough. All right. X. All right. No X. I hate this app. All right. No X. X. So if they enter philosophy, the philosopher is no different right now. Every philosopher I read is no different than a lefty. Lefty will say, it's not my job to educate you. Which means no experience over here is out of the conversation. They are not allowed because they need to leave and go read other shit because you're not qualified to understand.
Yep.
Now, they will also say at the same time that they are the first person to do metaphysics, meaning all previous shit is inconsequential because I am doing metaphysics for the first time. I am the first person to do metaphysics. Kant tried it, but he wasn't, which goes back to Russell, the dividing principle, right? Or whatever it is, right? That you'll never know. And I think that I think it's easy to say retrospectively, they all failed. I would say to start any sort of philosophical work with the previous person doesn't have it figured out, I do, misses that dividing principle that we never know when we're at the most divided or of an atom, right? We don't know when we can't divide further because potentially you could, but we don't know it yet, right? Okay. With me so far?
I think so. What's the dividing principle? Is just saying that we don't know when we can stop dividing.
So that's not the right name for it, I don't think, but you're the one who taught me it, right? Is that we'll never know if the atom is the smallest thing, right? Because future technology will allow us to divide further, right, into atoms of atoms, right? We can't know. People didn't know bacteria existed, but they probably said they know the smallest thing at the time, right? But they can't really know that.
Okay. Yep.
So to say I have divided the world so much that not only did the person before me not know, was under the illusion that they were doing it right, but now I am doing it right, and I am dividing it further, and I have it figured out. I think that's a oxymoron.
Yeah.
My proposition which I think we just do today, or is done today, is if you want to educate and be understood and appreciated, every philosopher will talk about how they want to change. Well, let me check that. Would you say that most philosophers want to impress upon people other than other philosophers? They want to change the way people look at the world. Or let me rephrase it. When Schopenhauer or Kant says, read this preliminary work, are they hoping that this person on the right who has no education is actually going to leave this book, go back and read, or are they truly gatekeeping and know that they're gatekeeping and saying fuck off, figure it out, like you're not qualified?
I think that what they're saying, I don't know about. I think they are saying you should go back and read this other thing. They're not trying to like play a trick to say, "Oh, you don't know this? Don't ever bother reading this." I think they are genuinely going, "I want you to go read this other thing first."
I truly believe. This is just my salesman in me. If you can't condense your ideas, well, first of all, if you can't sell me a product in less than 2 sentences, it's not real, or it's not worth caring about. Meaning, if no person on earth can describe, like, it's probably a scam. That's just a general rule to live by. If I ask you the price or what it does, and you start going, so in 1892, I just shut the fuck up, kill yourself, right? If you can't say it's a car, it gets me from A to B on wheels, whatever, right? Like everything can be generally explained. If I go to the Spark Notes for Kant or for Hegel or for whatever in the subsection, it's going to tell me that the spirit. What is the Hegel concept? The spirit.
Yeah, spirit.
So the spirit is a way to look at objective. It can be used as a way to look at objective morality as a groupthink or kind of cultural look at morality, and that we do understand a certain set of sub-beliefs, even if they're not written down anywhere. Wow, look at that. I just summed up one part of Hegel, and it didn't require 900 pages, right? I think it is reductive, and I recognize that. But if you want to educate and change the world, you cannot gatekeep out the world.
So I think
that's
most of the people who they're talking to, the people that Schopenhauer would like to be talking to is either other philosophy professors or philosophy students. Yeah, in the experience realm. And then he got a little snarky when he started talking about people who have no experience, where he's just like, "Oh, you can use this book to, fill up something
coffee table or something.
Coffee table, or best you can write a review." Which is because I think also that kind of snarkiness also somewhat has to do with the with the day that he was writing in, to a degree, which is that a lot of people were professing to be, really smart and stuff, and he thought that most people were saying things actually weren't educated at all, but they were talking as if they were educated. And so he's not really interested in talking to people. Well, he's not interested in selling you something. He's more interested in people with experience, because there is a bit of a problem, and with people in philosophies that well, I don't know if it's a problem. It's a state of affairs that they think that they're better than everybody else.
Yes, it's a huge problem.
Yeah, well,
I'll even amend my statement to
agree with
you. I would amend my statement that maybe there was some utility back then. There was no Spark Notes, there was no information, there was no internet, right? So this experience that you need to understand, if the average person has no idea about the difference between objective and subjective morality and doesn't even grasp, barely can spell, yeah, you should probably go fucking read. Right? This person needs to go fucking read some shit. I want to kind of step back. Something you're banging is really, really close to the mic.
Sorry, I'll stop.
No, that's cool. You can do it just farther away. So I'll amend my statement that this person doesn't need. All I want to say is, I think it's retarded that they are so against summing up their ideas, even though it can be done, is done all the time, and there's nothing wrong with it. Being reductive is okay for the sense that you can spread your ideas farther. How many philosophers probably didn't get off the ground because they were so... And
Yeah,
this,
I
yeah,
think it's a I mean it's something I've seen a lot in the German ego. It's very much with German philosophers that they do this. Uh, as you've seen with at least with Russell, who's a British person, he's
yes,
like you could read him without having to have read all of other philosophy. Now he mentioned other philosophy, but he didn't go. You won't understand what I'm saying unless you have read these other philosophers.
he doesn't
Um,
say go fucking read this shit
yeah,
over here.
no,
I'm
no, no,
not
no.
gonna
I
teach
really
you.
think that this part where this is very peculiar to I think German philosophy over the last. I mean, yeah, German philosophy. I mean, even if you read Hume, he'll talk about other people, but he won't on the front of it go, well, you have to read these other things, blah 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 blah. Just and he's also way less annoying to read than a lot of his contemporary German people. And then
Yes,
I also think like so like I mean, at least Kant went so far as to make a prolegomena instead of just being like, "Oh, there's my 600-page book. You have to fucking read it." At least he did that. I mean, he still has the good sense of the German ego, and he didn't also go, "You have to read all these. You have to read everything else before you can understand what I'm talking about." Because at least Kant was he didn't do that. I mean, it might help if you do.
yes.
But he never, at least from what I've read, um, he never outright said you have to read this other stuff before you can read this. Because in fact, what a whole lot of his gist was that all that other stuff before me was a bunch of nonsense. Um, so there's no point in
There's a
reading it.
last part of this drawing, and it's gonna be on the Kant piece. Kant. Anyone who reads Kant, including you. So this is gonna be an accusation. Get ready.
You can accuse me.
Uh, it is all. Ready? Oh, this is gonna be big letters. 94. Cope. He's a bad writer. At some point, across thousands of pages, across dozens of books, I'm writing on purpose bad is Cope. At what point of, let's say I act every day like a thug, I sag my pants, I say the N word, I rap, I sell drugs, but I say it's all an act, and I do this for my entire life. At what point am I just a fucking thug or gangster or what have you? I'm not doing anything different. Just because I say I'm acting doesn't make it so. And just because people say that he's writing bad on purpose, that's such Cope.
Kant. I don't think he's writing bad on purpose. I
Yeah,
think
and people, I think it's most people. I think it's more other people will try to say that, or like there's a subset of philosophy that wants to cope, that it's all on purpose and it's a cope. He's a bad writer. Like, and it's so apparent when we read Schopenhauer. Who? How many years apart are they?
it's about 40 years
He, yeah,
between. Well,
Kant.
yeah. So I mean, they were somewhat contemporaries. I mean, they were alive at the same time to some extent, but from like when Kant wrote the Prolegomena to when Schopenhauer wrote his dissertation.
1788 to 1860. It's not worlds apart where
No,
they have a whole different language.
no. I mean, Kant. I think is genuinely just a bad writer. I think he doesn't quite. If I've started to notice, especially this time around, that he'll just say the same shit a lot of times because he's not exactly sure if he's said it right already, so he'll just say it again. And so
Yes.
he doesn't clean up any. He doesn't go, oh, these are all the things I should have been saying, and I'm not gonna say it all again. So like the other problem is that sometimes when he's saying it a second time, he'll slip in maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. So you get like a slight twist on it.
It's like all a rough draft.
Yeah, instead of him just saying this is what I said, this is what I think. He's
Aw,
going, I
little
know.
suicidal kid
Yeah, I
in
know,
his
right?
youth. Red nose, cute. Sorry.
Yeah, no. I think I forget. I can't exactly remember all the details, but I do think that Hegel purposefully wrote obscurely, and I know that Nietzsche did because
I think the dialectic is I can buy into that, and I'll give deference or room for someone to argue that it is written.
Well, I can tell you that he wrote it
the
purposely terribly
dialectic.
because I read his theological writings in which he was
Yeah, I was
younger.
there.
He was a younger writer, so presumably he's not as good of a writer. But it was way clearer. It made very much a whole lot of sense. He said, "These are all the things I'm going to say. I'm going to say them," and then he would say the individual things, and he would say how the individual things made sense to the entire thing. And then once you get to the fucking phenomenology of spirit, it's just, it's horrendous.
Trudging through.
Yeah, so so I can't quite cite the sources that said that either
I
Hegel
believe you.
himself said that he's writing purposely terribly, or other people said that they said he wrote purposely obscurely. But at the very least, I can tell you there's a stark difference between Hegel in his theological writings and Hegel in his, once he starts doing full-on philosophy.
Totally, yeah, I can not only believe that, but it makes sense on his face.
And then Nietzsche himself, well, he outright does say that he purposely writes obscurely so that dumb people won't understand him, which is, I don't know why he would want to do that. But so what he does, but I mean, probably the reason he did it was so that when dumb people read it and then try to talk to other people who have read it and actually understood it, the smart people can go, well, clearly you're a dumb person, so you're not worth talking to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Other than that, I think Kant's just a bad writer. I can't say anything about Fichte or Schelling, who, if you remember in the prefaces, Schopenhauer kind of referenced the bombastic and the charlatanistic writers, and he had a couple other ways of describing
the queers.
Them. At some point, he referenced Hegel directly.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, but who I gather he's talking about, because the people that were between Kant and Hegel is Reinhold, Fichte, and Schelling, and I figured of the three of those, Reinhold really wasn't particularly profound. He just mostly kind of leaned people towards trying to found Kant on a single principle instead of two. And then also, he was more, his place in post-Kantianism, actually, a lot of Kant is indebted to Reinhold, only because he professed him. And he was like, you should read this. I'm a guy who's not Kant who says that you should go read Kant. I'm going to run around and I'm a hype guy, right? I'm going to market you, Kant. And then it was like Fichte and Schelling then kind of they did a lot more, like, presumably they did more substantial working in post-Kantianism. So, of the people that I would imagine Schopenhauer was, pointing fingers at, would have been those two and definitely Hegel. And then I read part of the SCP on Schopenhauer, which we should also do. He was definitely shitting on Fichte, Schelling, and Hegel.
He is so, and that's a perfect segue to jump right into Schopenhauer, unironically.
Yeah.
Schopenhauer is a prophetic is to know the future, prolific writer.
Yeah.
He is well spoken.
Mm-hmm.
He can. There's a structure, right? Here is my thesis. Here is maybe I'm going to lay out my first point, a couple examples. I'm going to maybe speak in poetry, but it is it's clear that I'm, like, when he's using 9 commas here, it's not obnoxious run-on sentence 9 commas. He's itemizing: free sky, free view, free air, free field, free.
Yeah.
Like that's free electricity. So, and then he's manipulating the language. So he's going from free, as in the space around us, and then material, electricity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Free course of stream, free press, right? So he's crossing ideas, free room, postage, free indicate. He's a prolific writer. I love the way he structures. It bridges on. It both makes you expand your mind without hurting it in the process.
Yeah. Yep. Yes, he is. People should have learned. More philosophers should have been appreciative of good writing. I mean, part of it also might. I mean, I don't know. Maybe a lot of them were like, well, Kant was so big and he was a terrible writer that why the fuck do I need to be a good writer? People will just read me. They'll just keep licking my asshole, which is really annoying. No, but yeah, Schopenhauer is a good writer, which is why Nietzsche is also a good writer, but he's a little bit more
Well,
nefarious.
I'm trying to think of who in this time period first starts to tackle causation, not in this time period, but just over time. Who really starts to break down truly causation and free will? Because he does such a great job of breaking down these topics, but I don't know how much credit to give him, if this is
Right.
a well-known idea at the time or not.
Are you talking about like before? Are you talking about the like post Kant era?
So just when this is written, whenever this is written,
Yeah.
I don't know how much credit to give Schopenhauer for talking about free will and its relation to causation, right?
I mean,
He could be prolific, or he could be just citing someone else. I don't know
he
the
could just
time
be
periods.
reiterating ideas.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't remember a whole lot of Kant on causality per se, or about more so. I don't remember him. I don't remember anything about what he said about free will. Causation has been a topic for a long time, but the way that there's a particular, I guess you would call it, dimension that Schopenhauer is going to bring in that a lot of people kind of missed, or kind of overlooked, which was conflict. When you're talking about cause, that the two things in the causal relation should be of the same type. So matter only causes matter. Concepts cause concepts, and forms cause forms. And there's a fourth. So we have what matter. Oh, and well, fucking the sufficient. So we have material, formal, efficient, and teleological, which
So here's a little history. So Kant thought that time and space were notions prior to human understanding of the progress or evolution, but he did not have an understanding that came with knowledge of Minkowski geometry and the special theories of relativity, that notions of causality can be used as a prior foundation from which to construct notions of time and space. So it sounds like the concept.
Can you scroll to the right a little bit?
Yeah, let me adjust my screen share.
Okay. The notion of causality can be used as a prior foundation. Okay, hold on. Actually, right here. That the notion of causality can be used as a prior foundation from which the construction of notion of time and space. I actually think... So they're talking about Minkowski here, but actually I'm pretty sure Schopenhauer is the one that actually does this.
Because that's important, right? Is the timeline of...
Yeah. I'm pretty sure Schopenhauer is actually... So what's Minkowski? What's his time period?
Jesus, my scrolls so much. I did not scroll that much.
He's older.
1864.
So,
so that's almost to Schopenhauer's death, right?
Yeah. So Schopenhauer... So what Schopenhauer ended up doing was, to some extent, showing that all the... I believe it's all the a priori concepts of the understanding all really amount to the notion of sufficient reason, which is also causality. So causality...
So here it is here. Sorry, I found theory of perception. So 1813, Goethe invited Schopenhauer to help him in the theory of colors. Nevertheless, these investigations led him to his most important discovery of epistemology, finding a demonstration for a priori nature of causality. Kant openly admitted that it was Hume's skeptical assault on causality that motivated him to be the critical investigation, the critique of pure reason, proof that shows that causality is a priori.
I think Schultz was Schopenhauer's professor.
Yep. Advised his student Schopenhauer to concentrate on philosophies of Plato and Kant. I don't know that whatever that sound was just now.
Sorry, that's the noise.
That's the one that
Yeah.
is the only one
I'm
that bugs.
spinning a pen and I keep
It's
dropping it.
Between the pointer, middle, and thumb, you do the flip, and then catch. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, okay, so that's important, right? Because all of this is really important because he could be literally reading from an encyclopedia or truly breaking down what Kant was doing, and it sounds like he's truly breaking ground, right? Which is true. So this makes this
So I'm
prolific.
doing it again. God damn it.
It's okay.
Okay.
I'm not. Don't get mad about me getting mad about.
I'm not mad at you.
No, you're mad at
me
yourself.
Yeah.
You're mad at yourself about. Yeah. Oh, I'm so chill today, which is such a rare occurrence.
Okay.
So I'm totally.
Okay. So yeah, which is why I think. So there's two. Yeah. So now we have two reasons why that we should read Schopenhauer's The Fourfold Root of the concept of the principle of sufficient reason. Because sufficient reason is really where causality lies. So sufficient reason is that for any given thing, there is a reason or a cause for it being so. And actually, a lot of what a decent amount, actually, I think a very good portion of what we read in Kant today was kind of based around that.
Right. It was very because it sounded like my God, it was either he's reading from an encyclopedia or that is a prolific set of words he was putting like in just this preface essay, right?
Yeah. So the notion of causality did, yeah. I mean, it hits in Leibniz. He's really kind of the first one that articulates it, but Schopenhauer does a whole lot of work on it that really clarifies, on the one hand, a lot of problems and clarifies the notion of causality. Like a lot, like for example, the remember the ontological argument, for the existence of God, which was that I have a concept of God, and I do have that concept, and part of that concept is that God exists, and fucking therefore he must exist. Because existence is a perfection, right? And the problem with that is that you're trying to say that I have a concept of God in which he is perfect and therefore he exists, which is in the concept. And now I'm trying to come up with a sufficient reason for that, and that now I'm saying he materially exists. And the problem with that is that you're now making a causal relation between concepts and material, which is a no-no for Schopenhauer. You can only actually apply the notion of causality or of sufficient reason between two things that are on the same plane or dimension, and he reverts to Aristotle on that, which is that you have your material, formal, sufficient, and teleological or psychological end. So it might behoove us to take a look at the Aristotle four causes, just to kind of get a grasp on that, because he will, when we go into Schopenhauer, he will organize at least his dissertation based off of that Aristotelian distinction.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So anyway, so besides the fact that Schopenhauer is pretty awesome,
Pro-suicide.
Yeah. So, and that most of his preface just went to say that most people suck and they like licking assholes. That was like I'd say like 60% of the two prefaces.
What did you think of preface one of the first edition versus preface to the second edition and the contrast?
Oh, I mean, the first one was much more informal and I guess you could say professional, in the sense that he's like, hey, like, you're about to read this book. If you're gonna read this book, you're probably gonna want to know this, you know. Kind of like in a similar way that, if you're gonna learn calculus, you should probably understand basic arithmetic first. It's gonna help you a lot. Now, the funny thing with philosophy is that you can always just fucking read it anyway, and you'll grasp some of it, but it does help a lot to, understand the backdrop about what's going on. Not only in terms of the concepts.
I know what you were going for, I, at my core root, hate that comparison, right? Because I think that's what most philosophers would say, is that it is a one-to-one like math. But I think you cannot physically do like math builds on itself. Like you're not going to be able to do geometry without algebra. But I can understand and put into words Russell or Schopenhauer without touching Kant once.
Sure, sure, and you could do that. It's just that like a lot of what he's going to be saying
Is
you
a
can
retort.
you can grasp it quicker if you have already read the other stuff.
But that's fundamentally different than cannot, or
Yeah,
you know,
it is.
you have to go backwards or you will not be able to proceed, right?
Yes, I agree. Yep, which is why I said, of course, you can always just fucking read it anyway.
Yeah, so I'm not, and that's not a slight on you. That's more a slight on the philosophers who like to use that. Like it's just like just yeah, how would I could see Schopenhauer saying that right
Yeah.
in so many words.
Oh yeah, I mean, because like what he'll do is he'll go, well, here's a sentence, and really I can tell you the sentence, and you can grasp the meaning of the sentence, but whether you believe it or not really depends on whether you read this other 200-page book. So you can just
Which is a cop out, such a cop out.
Well, it's not a cop out exactly. It's just that okay, here's a sentence. If you want to understand the whole like context of it and like the proof of it, so you can always insert a statement and just say this is the case. But whether it's proved or not, or whether it really happened, as in like somebody else said it, you do have to go to those other things. But you can take it and you can move on. Now, analogously, we'll go back to mathematics. It bothers me when you're doing trigonometry that they're just like, yes, the cosine of 2.6 is this value. And I'm like, how the fuck do we know that? The only reason I know that is because I'm using a fucking calculator. And sure, we can do all this math. We can talk about it. I can take a test. And I agree that if I plug these numbers in my calculator, they match with your calculator. But at least from like, so yes, I can understand that the cosines and the secants and the tangents all work together like this, but why do they? I don't know. I'd have to go do a bunch of other nonsense to just figure that out. But yes, for the sake of quote unquote, like similar to this, for the sake of argument, yes, I'll accept this and we can move forward. It's just that he'll brush over ideas that it's very quick, and he's mostly just going, "That's the idea," and then we'll move forward. Because basically, he doesn't want to have to do the explaining. He wants to go, well, all that explaining was done somewhere else.
And that every time, like it just feels like triggered lefty today talking about gender identity, saying it's not my job to educate you about gender identity, and I just want to reach through the book and punch him in his grave. Like it's just so that concept of going, I don't need to justify this. It is true in and of itself, or go read and find out for you. It's like, go fuck yourself. Sorry, that's someone. This is probably core to my being as someone who skipped education and was gate kept from is currently gate kept out of an industry because of my lack of education. Despite being,
and also you work in sales where you can't go, well, I don't have to explain it to you. You should know it already. I'm like, no, and everybody in that
because somebody's gonna ask, a buyer's gonna ask me a question, and if I don't have the answer, I can't go find it.
Yeah, like, oh well, as a purchaser, I'm going, I want to give you my money, but you're being an asshole right now. Why the fuck would I do that?
Right. Go find. So putting myself in that shoe, right? If a consumer, right? If a consumer says, well, let's say you know a lot about cars. What type of transmission? Is it a manual or an automatic? And I go, it doesn't matter. Well, I want to know. And now that and then you start to say, well, Ford was invented in 1892. I start to get a little like, what? I don't buy that. Whatever you're telling me is horseshit. Clearly, you either don't have an answer, or you're dancing around it, right? So that's my intuition, is to say you're full of shit and you don't know what. But I'm gonna guess. Sorry, as a tangent.
Right. So there is I have seen. Okay, I believe I have seen. Let me believe here.
I believe you that you believe that you've seen.
Yes, I believe that there is one philosopher that I know about that does both. That does both things. Where, on the one hand, he'll explain his concept in respect to the entire history of philosophy, he'll be like, well, I'm assuming that you are a fully educated philosopher, so I'm just gonna fucking talk. And then on the other hand, he'll also have works that, if you want to call it, applied to the masses, that require no prior knowledge.
Like MASSA,
What?
like massa, like a black person would say to a white person, and these never mind.
I don't
Anyways,
know what you're talking about.
like master, but massa. It was a black slavery
massa?
joke.
Yeah, okay. I get what you... Okay.
Ha.
Yeah.
It was
Which
a
is
really
Quine,
bad
by
one.
the way. Quine is he's a person I've been wanting to bring up with you, but he's for later. He's that's my we're not dealing with that. We'll not deal with that for now. Anyway,
Yeah.
let's get to I want to get to the content of.
Yeah, so I've kind of gone about a few different topics. Why don't you hit me with your?
So, the most if you want to call it profound, I guess, the most peculiar. So besides him going, well, here's the concept of freedom. What do we mean? Sure, people mean different things. That's all good and good, you know, but from what I remember, the fun part had to do kind of near the end of. So there's more or less two sections, which is what is meant by freedom. Kind of near the end.
Which is super interesting. We'll have to brush back on that, but continue.
Yeah. So what is meant by freedom? He more or less talked about I think it's 3 different types of freedoms. You have physical freedom, intellectual freedom, and moral freedom. And in the sample we have, he totally just skipped intellectual freedom because he said it would be made more sense later. Physical freedom was like, can I physically walk into this place? Will I be obstructed if I try to do this? And then the other one is moral freedom, which is a little bit more philosophically profound. So I think in a lot of ways, like, so people talk about America being like a free country, you know, like that was the idea of America. In a lot of ways, early America was a lot more. I mean, what it wanted to be is physically free. I think that's, on the one hand.
Which is why. Okay, I'm gonna pause you because I'm gonna let you continue.
Okay.
Which is why I got so like up in arms or excited about the conversation about prison, because it so ties back to freedom versus causality. Go on. I'm gonna build on what you're saying in a sec. Continue.
Okay. Yeah. So.
Early America, you're saying, was more free.
I
would say no. I would say yes in ways and no's in ways.
I'm not saying that it's more free. I'm saying that the type of freedom that they were talking about in early America was physical freedom. Well.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, which is that, and I'm only saying, not that I'm saying this.
I follow.
Posthand, which is that, there's all this land, you can just go there, and you can just take it. You can just say it's your land, because, you know, whatever the governments at the time that had the power that did control the land said, and you know, from basically 1700 to about, I'd say, 1900, you know, the powers that be said, just go over there, you can take the land, and we will back you as you own that land. You have the physical freedom to move yourself over there, and also to claim that land.
And then there's intellectual and moral.
That land is yours. Now, intellectual, he didn't really go into that.
Yeah, here it is. I have it here.
He defers it. Yeah.
Yeah, he defers it.
And then you get the moral notion of freedom, which is interesting. So physical freedom mostly meant, I want to do something. Am I impeded from doing that? Anywhere from I want to eat a cake to I want to literally walk in that direction.
Are you still talking moral or physical?
Physical. Physical says I want to do something, and can I do it? Which is anywhere from eating a cake to physically moving there, you know,
right,
through motion, or murdering people.
Right.
I want to murder people. That's just what I want to do. Can I do it? Will I be impeded? Will people get in my way? Will people stop me from doing after I did the first time? And then you get.
I think we've yeah.
And then you get to the moral freedom, which is that, do I have a choice as towards What
Do I have
kind?
obstruction outside of the physical world, such as I can talk about this for days,
Sure.
but I'll summarize in a couple examples. Meaning, I would say that if we were to compare, let's say, Scandinavia to Syria right now, Syria has the ultimate physical freedom that I can literally just create my own tax code and tax the people around me with an AK-47 and demand they pay me unless I kill them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is the ultimate physical freedom. But the question of, can I be unimpeded in living in a well air conditioned mobile home that is in the middle of, let's say, Baghdad, or that's a different country, but we'll just say Baghdad. Um, if I want to live in that place without being shot or condemned, or without being obstructed or impeded by it could be a material thing imposed by, someone outside of my physical, something that I didn't bring into my physical presence, right? I would say so, or in this country, right? If I want an education, um, if I have a 4.0 GPA, I'm going to get a scholarship. But if I cannot afford it, I am impeded by the potential for loans, or the not having a good enough, not being a minority, so I don't get it paid for, right?
Yeah.
Whatever the case is,
Yeah, and it's very physical. That's a.
that would be the moral.
I don't think so. Um, just that whether you have like you are impeded by other people that you want, like I want to get a loan, and the problem is that well that's just what you want, but somebody's
Can
impeding you.
how about we do this? Because I would
Like well,
disagree.
so
Can I
so
read? Can I read this page where he says moral freedom and how he defines it? I just want to. I feel like I want to brush up on this. Is that okay, or do you have
sure
Do you want to interject something?
um which part of this?
So I'm on page end of 12, beginning of 13. It says the last sentence is moral freedom. I'm just gonna read that next page,
Yeah, I
page
therefore
13.
turn at once to the third kind of moral
Yeah,
freedom, which is really
yeah.
the
So
liberum artarium mentioned in
I'm
the
gonna mute
Royal
myself
Society.
and let the AI read it.
You can actually just go ahead and don't mute yourself. Just let it rip.
Okay. Um, Come on, you hooker. Really? Okay, I'm gonna open up Edge. Oh, it's because it's the website. I have to. There we go. Oh my god. All right. What page was it? 12 to 13. Perfect. All right. Did you want to hear it or no?
Yeah.
Okay. Is this not the same one?
It's the
Why is
same
it
one.
different? Are you sure?
Yeah.
Oh, I was looking at PDF page 12, I think.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. I'm retarded. All right.
To think of everything that moves only by its will or acts only from its will. This transformation, koi shaun kata dianoian 2 in Aristotle, 3 is really the liberum arbitrium forementioned in the question of the Royal Society. This concept is connected with that of physical freedom in a manner that also enables us to see its necessarily much later origin. As I have said, physical freedom refers only to material obstacles, and exists at once with the absence of the latter. But in a good many cases it was observed that, without being impeded by material obstacles, a human being was restrained from acting as otherwise would certainly have been in accordance with his will, by mere motives, such as threats, promises, dangers, and the like. The question was therefore raised whether such a human being had still been free, or whether, like a physical obstacle, a strong countermotive could actually prevent and render impossible an action according to the will proper. The answer to this could not be difficult for sound common sense, namely that a motive could never act like a physical obstacle, since the latter might easily exceed absolutely the physical forces of a human being, whereas a motive can never be irresistible in itself or have absolute power but may still always be overcome by a stronger counter-motive. If only it were present, and the human being in the given individual case could be determined by it. For we frequently see that even what is usually the strongest of all motives, the preservation of life, is nevertheless overcome by others, example, in suicide and the sacrifice of life for others, for opinions and for interests of many kinds, and conversely, that occasionally all degrees of the most extreme tortures on the rack have been surmounted by the mere thought that life would otherwise be lost. But although it was evident from this that motives have no purely objective and absolute compulsion, a subjective and relative one could nevertheless belong to them, namely for the person concerned, and in the end this was the same thing. Hence there remains the question, is the will itself free? Plus or minus here then the concept of freedom, which one had hitherto thought of only in reference to the ability to act, was now brought in relation to willing, and the problem arose whether willing itself was free. But on further consideration, the original, purely empirical, and hence popular concept of freedom proved incapable of entering into this connection with willing. For according to this concept, free means in conformity with one's own will. Now if we for free choice of the will.
Free means in conformity with one's own free will. Free choice of the will.
So for according to this concept, free means in conformity to one's will.
That's tough.
As a result of the empirical concept of freedom we have, I am free if I can do what I will. And the freedom is already decided by what I will. But now, since we are asking about the freedom of willing itself, the question should accordingly be expressed as following: Can you also will what you will? So, to some extent, when somebody motivates you, so if somebody says like, "Oh, if you do this, I'll stab you. But if you do this other thing, I'll suck your dick." They're influencing your will, the will itself, because of course you'd rather do one than the other. So now, to what extent are you actually free in having the motivation to do something? So say you have a choice to go left or to go right, and if you go left,
this is the deterministic treadmill of that all causality and all decisions are made through that which precedes it.
What?
This is the deterministic treadmill, right? That all, like, did you really have a choice, right? If all of your choices are influenced by by causality, right? By outside influence, by when I got up this morning, my parents always fed me Quaker oatmeal, so it's not like like technically I could go out and buy fucking goat milk, but I'm probably gonna have the Quaker oats in my fucking cabinet because that's what I always had as a kid, or I'll have the Cookie Crunch. But either way, it's not like I'm going out and having this free choice of new breakfasts that I'm so excited to express, right?
Yeah. Well, okay. So I think. So, to the so he gets on a little bit later with talking about freedom being the negation of necessity, which is that when
say that again. Freedom is the negation.
Freedom is more or less the negation of necessity. So if you had to do something, then you weren't free to decide, whether or not to do it. Right? Like,
but wouldn't we say that a plant necessarily, like, everything is like, not that everything is necessary in absoluteness, but I necessarily. Oh God, that is interesting. Continue. Yep. Sorry.
Yeah. So that you so to the extent that, like, somebody tells you, hey, if you give me flowers, I'll suck your dick. Like,
I'm buying flowers, baby.
The antecedent, the consequent of that, which is that I'll suck your dick. We'll just say of necessity, makes you want to do that. So
suck the dick of necessity.
Yeah. So to that degree, and then that made you then want to do the antecedent, right? So to that extent, your will had to be moved into that direction because of what the person said. So to that extent, you weren't free because it was necessary.
Well, then we would say nothing is free then.
Well, that's
true.
I think that might be the case. I think that might, well, to some extent. So at least insofar as this this stuff is concerned, that has to be the case. Now, so the fun part is you have on the one hand, you have your emotions that react to certain things, which obviously are not free because they're necessary. They necessarily react to what's going on around them. On the other hand, you have your rational, and this is where okay, you have your rational reason, you have your logic capacities that then tell you what you should do, right? And the fun thing about logic is that everything proceeds by necessity, so that as a rule, you go, oh, I shouldn't murder this person because murdering is bad. Then you of necessity have to say, I shouldn't murder this person, which means you didn't actually choose it because it was of necessity. So you had no free will in doing that. The rules of logic move by necessity, and I'm kind of just saying the same shit.
Well, it's like the gun to the head concept, right? That every choice in life is gun to your head. Meaning, yes, I can get up and run and give up and live in the fucking forest. But am I?
Well, I'd say like the emotional. So there's two sources of action, which is that you have your emotional source and your rational source. And the gun.
I don't think those are separate. Oh, I don't think those are unimpeded by the gun to the head. I think your emotions and what you logically come to the conclusion to, while they may be different in their methods, the gun to the head is not out of that equation. Emotionally, if I just react to things. Now, how I deal with that emotion, right, is going to be unique, right? I'm not going to just outburst anytime, but that emotion is not something I can control to a large degree. And then the rational outcome, gun to my head. If I get a bill and I like what's a good rational?
Should I pay
equation.
my taxes or not? I don't know. What's a better way?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
I want something more like something that really truly takes like a hard, like a trolley problem of rationality.
Oh, okay. Let me think of something. So, oh god, I know I have one.
I know you do. I just prepped it a little bit.
Okay, so for example, somebody I know is very depressed, and I know that if I shit on them to their face too much, then they will kill themselves, all right? And I don't want people to kill themselves. So
wait, say that again.
Okay, so
That,
I know that there is a person that is depressed to such an extent that if you shit on them enough, they will kill themselves. And I also know that I don't want people to kill themselves. We'll just go with that.
I think that it goes for all people, non-depressed and depressed. But yeah, continue. You shit on them enough, they will kill themselves.
Right.
True.
Anyway, now, imagine there might be a previous situation in my life that happened to replicate this to some degree or another, which is that said depressed person fucks you up in a way, right?
Right.
They do something really.
They hold you emotionally hostage.
Action to really bad action. They go anywhere from accidentally stepping on the back of your flip flops to stabbing your mother in the throat. Okay.
Is your mother alive?
Yes, my mother's alive. Anywhere in that range. Okay.
Sorry, just check.
And in a lot of that range, what I want to do is I want to come up to them and be like, "What the fuck are you doing?" and just berate them as towards their.
Like a Maury staff sergeant.
Yeah, just be like, "You're a piece of shit. What are you doing with your life?"
And I'm like, "Cash me outside." How about that?
And that's my emotional reaction. All right, so. And
We're going really far for this.
I'm not free to choose that that's my reaction. That's just what happens. Like, I eat food and I take a shit. That's going to happen. they shoved shit in my mouth, and now I'm gonna shit it on their feet. You know what I mean? Like,
What?
That's the
I'm
feeling.
getting so lost in this analogy.
okay,
So many turns in this analogy. It's like a fucking Stephen King book. This analogy.
okay. So, said depressed person, it doesn't matter that they're depressed, that they caused me to be annoyed, but they caused me to be annoyed. They did some dumb shit, and I am going to feel annoyed by what they did. And now, by being annoyed, I'm going to want to go say some stuff to their face.
Fair
Okay?
enough. That's clear.
So, to that extent, I'm not free because I didn't choose what I will. Something else outside of me that's not me determined me to be in a certain state of mind. Right?
I'm following now.
Okay.
Now I'm following.
So, on that side, I am not free. Now, on the other hand, on the logical end or the rational end, I also then conclude that I follow through my logic and I go, well, if I shun this person really bad, then they'll kill themselves, and I shouldn't cause people to kill themselves, and therefore I go back to the beginning and I say I shouldn't berate them. And so now, by necessity, I've concluded that I shouldn't berate
Hey, this
them.
is no. Let me make this super
Which is
simple.
to
because I
say
feel
that
like
I wasn't free.
we're
in either
pussyfooting.
case.
I got an example. and we're pussy. I feel like we're pussyfooting.
What? All I'm saying is that I wasn't free. in either
I
case
got
to do
I
it.
got your point, but I'm
Okay.
gonna make it clear for both of us.
Okay.
I understand it, but I think this is gonna be clear and enjoyable.
Okay.
I look at a woman, I want to fuck her. She doesn't
Okay.
want to get fucked. It's rape. This is super. Like we just
Okay.
cut
Yes.
through the
Less
bullshit.
steps. I agree. There's less steps here.
Yes, you had. I'm not saying your analogy was shit. I'm just saying rape.
Yeah. Okay.
So I look at a woman, I want to have sex with her. That's my emotions and my dick. And then I rationally say I could go to jail, so I don't rape her.
All right.
Clear?
Right.
Is that are we
Very
aligned?
clear? Yep.
Okay,
We have
so
both. Yep. We have both the emotional side that then determines us without freedom to want to fuck, and then on the other end we also have, which is not a freedom, so we have no freedom there on the emotional side, and also on the irrational side, it tells us don't fuck, and that has to be our conclusion, and we were not free there either to do that. So in neither
Okay.
case were
Now-
we free.
yeah. So now you know my thoughts on like
rape?
I'm. You don't know those rules. Those are special rules that I keep in a
Special
box.
rules, yeah.
Yeah, or someone else's box. So I talk about this all the time that I am a hardline determinist. I think everything is, of the prior. Like I'm very, very, very hardline determinist. So the idea of that's why I, in the concept of the woman who is breastfeeding her kid on YouTube, this bloodlust for let's lock up this person. Well, do we really think there are people in this world who just go, yeah, I can't wait to fucking feed this kid with my tit? Or do you think she just wanted money for things and she doesn't need 10 years? She's just a greedy, she's not evil. She's 10 years? Really?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So that concept of, especially, it bugs me that anyone who even spent a fucking day in a church has the audacity to say 10 years in prison. You don't believe in God. You're not religious. You're a fucking fraud. That you don't forgive people. You do not care. You think people have evil within them, and that nobody thinks of themselves as the fucking. Everyone thinks of themselves as the fucking hero. Nobody thinks of themselves as evil. When they do something, they don't go. They're not like Smeagol going, "Yes, I can't wait to fuck this kid with my tit." They're just a person. They're just going about the world just like you. They have some excuse they tell themselves that, well, fuck, my parents fucked me up, and they fed me their tit and put it on not YouTube. So I feel like it was there's a reason. There's always a reason. There's if you ask them, they're not going to go, yeah, I did it because fuck the kid. And so this idea that they need to be punished because they weren't they don't. People aren't evil like that. That's not a thing in the world. So sorry. This was all a rant to say that I don't believe in free will.
Okay.
This is also pro rape.
Okay, great. I'm glad we're gonna tell the world that.
Do you
Which is
disagree
not
with
to
any
say
of it?
that you should do rape, but that if you did it, you didn't have a choice.
No, to do it, I would gaslight that person into thinking it was their fault.
Okay. Anyway, I think the interesting part is that a lot of like from what I grasp of the history of philosophy is that what distinguishes us as humans from animals is that we can decide whether to do something, right? And even the Christian or any Judeo, any of the fucking Jew people, from Abraham onwards, that type of theology says that we had a choice to do something or not. Now there are obviously caveats. They're not Mormon.
Which is even more crazier because God decides all things, doesn't he? Like even
Anyway,
Christian believe that God.
A huge portion of philosophical thought is bent towards the fact that we are humans and we choose things, and we couldn't have done otherwise. Or no, not.
Do you believe?
Oops.
Give me your thoughts. I know they're kind of contemporary. Give me your contest my ideas.
Well, I just want to say what Schopenhauer says, which is that even though we're not necessarily tied or required to act as our emotions tell us, since the only other option is logic or reason, and since logic or reason is tied to necessity, and since freedom is the negation of necessity, that whether we act from emotion or whether we act from reason, we are not acting freely because we are acting from necessity. And that's the interesting thing that happens in this section on
and I agree.
Moral freedom.
Right, he says it here, right? Can you will what you will, and thus it would be pushed back to infinity, since we could think of one willing to be dependent on previous or deeper willing, thus in vain endeavor to arrive ultimately at willing that we were bound to conceive and accept as being dependent on absolutely nothing. So, the question to you. Do you disagree? Do you think we have any inkling of free will? Fight with me.
Do we have any free will? Yes.
As if you've never thought of this.
Yes. And it's not a very intricate argument, which is that if we have free will, then it has been determined beforehand whether we did or did not do something.
Are you agreeing with me?
No, because I think most of the time what we're doing is a roll of dice, and it's just fucking whatever happens.
Well, hold on.
It wasn't
so you're saying it's probabilistic?
Yep.
Or is it arbitrary?
It's both.
So whether the ball that lands in my yard happened by because those are two different things, right? Was it arbitrary that ball fell in my yard and it was a roll of a random number generator, or was it probabilistic that it is probable that it came in from the neighbor's yard? You know, the philosophical concept I'm talking about, right? The ball.
I mean, I can get what you're saying. I don't know if I've heard it before.
Yeah. So the baseball flies in your yard, and you're trying to figure out where it comes from with no other information that you saw the trajectory and that it looked like it came from the neighbor's yard. You can't truly know that it was your neighbor. The neighbor's not in a home, and whatever kids were playing there, you don't know, right? All you have is that you are in a yard and a ball came in a certain trajectory where it looked like it was from the neighbor's. Can you know? Like I would say, it
Okay, so I guess okay, here we go. So there's one portion of free will that I think Schopenhauer, at least insofar as this was written, didn't exactly talk about, which is choosing between either your emotional motive or your rational motive. Because you could do either one, but what ends up deciding that, hard to tell. And so because it's a mystery, I'm just going to say it's free will.
Well, it can be a combination, right? Or we can say it's a percentage gradient.
I mean,
I didn't think that through, but I'm pretty sure that's right.
Well, we can say, I'm sure definitely a lot of people just go with their emotions. That's definitely a lot of people. And there's definitely a range of people that go with just what they think because they have a good grasp on what they're doing.
But do you think it's binary? You don't think that?
Well, I think there are some people that are kind of in between where they... Well, actually, anybody
I would say your emotions influence your rational.
Yes, they do, but you can either act purely emotionally or you can act with.
I don't think you connect pure to anything.
Well,
I don't think that's possible. Okay, like if you have
what
an
I'm saying, well,
example.
animals. We'll just say there are some animals that do act purely emotionally,
I don't even think that.
but there's
I
somewhere.
don't. I'm not
between-
trying to be contrarian.
There's somewhere between what they're doing and what we're doing. That at some point, I don't think most people are purely rational. Most people don't watch the world, figure out the patterns, and then apply the patterns to their particular situation and figure out which direction they should go in. I do think that a lot of people do watch patterns, and they do start to.
I would say the majority of people are pattern based. That explains almost everything.
Well,
That
like consciously patterned, not like I mean, like the
yeah, where you're using patterns differently. Sorry.
yeah, just I mean, just evolutionary pattern is not exactly what I'm talking about. I'm saying like consciously
Gotcha.
patterned. Like like evolutionary wise, I don't like being stabbed in the foot because whatever, but I don't evolutionary wise decide that I should spend all my money all the time. Like all the money that I have, I should spend it all today. Like
On Pokemon cards.
that's not exactly a pattern that was produced by evolution, or not a pattern. It wasn't a behavior that was either declined or approved by evolution. It took some reason to decide that, some abstract and reason because you do some abstraction.
Yeah. So like a good example, right? Uber Eats. Now emotionally, I want to buy something. Right. I have this feeling inside me. I want to buy something, but instead of buying a car, I give myself a little bit of a dopamine hit by buying a little bit of Uber Eats, right? My emotions are influencing my rationality, but my rationality is tempering my emotions.
Yep.
I would say there's never. I would say this is a tough thing to say. I would say there's never a 100% of either.
Mm-hmm.
Those are, I mean, literal mental health patients, like meaning they don't exist in this world, or they do, but they're in the mental hospitals because they're either going out and raping the first person they see that they get a boner for, or they are on the other side, have no emotional attachment and make everything on rationality and rape because they fucking add up that they want to have sex and they can get away with it.
Mm-hmm.
Which is an emotional feeling that they want to have sex. So it's like even in that situation, I feel like it's never a. I know I'm abstracting this conversation because I find the topic interesting. We're getting away from. If you're not okay with.
Well, I want to cheat
okay
and
with
go
that.
in a different direction that has to do with freedom, but I'm cheating because I read the SAP on Schopenhauer.
Well, I'm glad you're at least.
Yeah, which is that
enjoying him.
the freedom piece is actually to, as much as possible, withdraw from any determinate existences, because as long as you're in determinate, things that exist, like whether there's a lady or whether there's a Uber Eats or whether there's a car, those are all those are all determinate things, and they're necessarily tied with suffering. And the only way that you can be free is to be free from suffering. And the only way to do that is to
be free from the world.
Yep.
Which is to kill yourself.
I don't know about no, because killing yourself involves doing something that's.
Well, you're freeing yourself from the world.
Yes, but that implies doing a thing in the determinate world that takes something determinate in the world that applies it to something else as a external object. But in an inner sense, you can't really kill yourself in an inner sense. I can't with my own mind and know.
I can't bend the spoon matrix style kill
things.
myself.
Yeah. Well, even if you could bend your spoon with the matrix, that's still in the.
I'm literally doing it in the
appearances.
matrix. Yeah. Fuck.
From my inside, I can't.
So what you're saying is, when I'm writing my suicide note, I should be saying, I really hope I'm doing this based on free will, and that.
Well, it's not that you're doing anything based on free will; it's that you're withdrawing from the world of causality.
Which would be true free will.
Yes.
Withdraw, I would say, by definition.
Yes.
Right.
Because all things in existence are in a limitation, and so, therefore, not free.
Yeah, so I would say, in a large sense, of the broader question of determinate, I would say we agree, right, that almost all decisions come necessarily or
And yeah,
downstream
I mean,
from.
yeah, and well, I mean, I'm not what I think.
It's a real tough thing to. It's a tough bullet to bite, but it's. I mean, you're not gonna. I don't think you'd be able to argue out of it.
Yeah, well, all I can say is that what Schopenhauer thinks is that anything you do in the world is not free.
I would agree.
Yeah.
It's a
And-
super nihilistic look at the world.
And that's
It's
the first,
super
like-
super
Yeah, that's the first thing you have to recognize if you want to try to be free, is that anything you're doing is going to be not free.
Wait, that's tautological.
Yeah, anything you're
Or
doing. Yeah,
or
that's-
circular, I should say.
yeah, well, because anything you do is going to be done in the world, and anything done in the world is not free. So anything you do is going to be not free.
Oh, and that gets back to his kind of pushbacks to infinity, because you're just going to be adding.
Yeah, so,
you get
so
circular.
what you want to do is you want to try to withdraw from worldly things.
Do you want to?
Do
Is
I
it-
want
I
to?
mean,
No.
do you want free will? Is the question.
Oh yeah, do I want to be free? Because most people, yeah, no.
Why?
Oh,
Oh,
what do I? I don't know. I don't think I do. I don't think I want to be free in this sense of the term.
not the physical, but the free will sense. Yeah.
I don't think I want exactly free will.
Free use will.
free use.
Sorry.
Take a Sharpie and write it on my ass.
Yeah.
For free
Fucking
use.
weird. I was thinking in the porn sense, and will as in the person will.
Oh,
The free use will. It was play on words. Sorry.
okay. I was gonna say
Plus
for
porn.
anybody that wants to will my ass can will it.
So now that we've covered, I think we've kind of hit a. I'll let you, if you think there's more on Schopenhauer for this section, because there's a lot of Schopenhauer. We could just go forever. Kant. Do we want to
We want to
go to Kant?
Yes. Let me take a piss.
Yeah, same.
I'll be back.